not going to take a long time to introduce him because his credentials are so long. He's done so many wonderful things and has so many accomplishments. We would take the whole 30 minutes just listing all those things. But I want to just tell you that I met Dr. Shinitzky when we were both presenting at an addictions conference in Tampa. A friend of mine, Dottie, who is on the forefront of human trafficking and drug addiction in Tampa, prevention and helping women get out of the human trafficking that they're enslaved to. And she asked a group of us to come and present on addiction, and Dr. Shinitzky was the keynote speaker. I was the cleanup, I was the last guy, and I was a little nervous after hearing him and other people there because there were such great presenters at that conference. But afterwards, when we were cleaning up, Dr. S and I had a chance to talk, and as we were walking out to the parking lot together, I said, you know, I'd really love to have you come speak at my church. And he made the mistake of saying, I'd love to. And so I said, wonderful, I'm going to be calling you. And a few months passed by, and we came to this series, Family Matters, to the topic of parenting. And I thought, who better to come and talk about this topic than Dr. S? And so I called him, and he was generous enough to come and speak with us this morning. And if you look at all of his accomplishments, one thing that is very, very clear is that he has a servant heart. He gets paid big bucks to come and give these talks, and he is coming here completely as a volunteer just to share what he knows with you to help you become a better parent. And that speaks a lot to his character and a lot to his servant heart, and so we're just delighted to have him. I just want to tell you a few things that I think are very interesting. You probably know he has a doctorate in psychology, and he specializes in child psychology and sports psychology, so he deals a lot with athletes, including Olympians. I saw some folks on your Facebook page that are training for the Olympics. He's been a mental health correspondent for Radio Disney, for ABC Tampa, Fox Tampa, and Animal Planet. And so he's not shy of the camera and has been able to share his knowledge with lots of people through that medium. He was the director of the assessment and intervention team for prevention services at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine in the Pediatrics Division. And he is the co-author of a book called Your Mind, an Owner's Manual for a Better Life, which was converted into a youth prevention curriculum called the Social Black Belt and is being used in several schools in the greater Florida area. So there's lots more. He also has a great website that is not only for adults but for kids as well. Kids can log on and get support and help, and he might mention that as he comes up. But I would just like you to please put your hands together and give a warm welcome to Dr. Harold Shinitzky.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you, Pastor Mark. We had the opportunity of meeting each other at a conference just recently, and it was a delight. We had a combination of faith-based and research-based that brought it all together, which was just beautiful. And when Pastor Mark came up to me and said the idea of, I'd love for you to be able to share your information or wisdom with the congregation, it was not a question. As I was mentioning to Randy just before we all started today in our services, I had a mentor at Hopkins who used to say that if I possess some knowledge that I'm not using and it could benefit you and I'm not sharing it, it does neither of us any good. And the idea of bequeathing, giving back, is what I love to do. So it's an honor and a privilege to be a part of today's service, today's ceremony. When I was asked to present this topic today on parenting, I do a weekend training series on parenting. So what you are about to get is from an entire weekend training. So we are going to strap in. You got your seatbelts? We're going to cover a lot of information. I'm not a big fan of just removing information. I want to give it out there. So we're going to cover a lot. In particular today, we're going to cover kind of the ideological, philosophical things. So I'm going to be tossing concepts out to you. And please, let it wash over you. Really kind of get the flavor of it. As Pastor Mark was saying, that we're filled with abundant love to give. One of the Olympians that I work with said to me, and it was just this great quote, and I want to share it with you all. And that was that my natural talents are God-given. What I choose to do with them is my gift to God. And it was a great way of looking at rather than getting a big ego and believing that one is better than others. So without any further ado, we are going to be touching base today on parenting in the 21st century. I mentioned this to one of the patients I work with, and they said, as compared to what? So we're going to compare 21st century parenting to Byzantine times. No, we're just going to share with you information for today. Let me just ask, quickly, what are some of the current issues that our youth are dealing with? Just shout it out. Bullying. Social media. It's in your face. We didn't have to deal with this. Peer pressure, always and forever. Family issues. Unfortunately, there's a reality. Sexuality issues. Sometimes we don't like talking about that, but it's a reality. Bullying. That is a big issue that we've heard, and it comes around all too often. The prevention curriculum that we put together was specifically to address the issues of self-worth and anti-bullying. I'm going to ask if we can toss up there on the slide all of the bullets that we've got. We have a lot of information. You just heard several of these are up there. The bottom left one down there is the younger individuals are exposed to alcohol, tobacco, and drugs, ATOD. The average age of experimentation is 12.6. The average age is 12.6 around the nation. Average, which means that there are younger. Our goal is to always delay experimentation because we know from the research that if you delay experimentation, there's less likelihood of a later addiction. But as you can see up there, we have been witness to violence all over the place, in our own communities, as we just heard, terribly. Peer pressure is the biggie. And one of the things that I want to emphasize is that there is not a single at-risk behavior that the majority of kids participate in, which means the majority of kids, most kids, are good. So I'm actually a big fan of peer pressure. I wish there was more peer pressure because most kids are good, and I want that information to get out there. So we are going to move forward. In the life of a child, I got a lot of information up there. I was always taught at Hopkins, never put more than 7 bullets up on a slide. I've kind of asterisked, highlighted with a little red asterisk up there, a couple of key ones. I'm going to just hit them on there. Not every 9 seconds a high school student drops out. Every 20 seconds, hard to believe, every 20 seconds a child is arrested. Every 35 seconds a child is born into poverty, and every 38 seconds a child is born to a mother who has not graduated from high school. Let's move to our next slide. Lots of information, but in the life of the children in our country, every 3 hours a child or a teen is killed by a firearm. Every 5 hours a child or teen commits suicide. And every 6 hours a child is killed by abuse or neglect in our society. This slide sums up my entire career. I would rather deal with upstream issues rather than downstream issues. I would rather deal with an issue rather than wait for it to become a problem. We know from all the research that there is a ton of things that we can do to help forestall the natural decrement that we see that happens in adolescence. We want to keep kids in a healthy track, in a positive way. And there are tons of things that you all can do. And by the way, because you are all right here, that means you're part of the solution. And I want to thank you for being a part of this today. So let's move forward on this. This is from an entire weekend training. I usually spend about 10, 15, 20 minutes on every slide. We are going to be moving through it because I want you to just be able to absorb as much as possible. From Old Testament, New Testament, to evidence-based research, we know that there are prescriptions that have been offered up to us, dictates that have been provided, wisdom that's been shared. And as we can see, there shall not be a male or female barren among you. The idea of go forth and prosper. In Matthew, whoever humbles himself like a child is to the greatness of the kingdom. And train up a child in the way he should go. Even when they are old, they will not depart from it. We have these lessons that have been provided to us from 5,000 years ago, from 2,000 years ago, and like I said, evidence-based research that shows that they're beneficial. So let's continue. If I was to ask you all, describe for me an adolescent. Risk taker. Dun, dun, dun. Complex yet simple. Naive. I know everything. Not yet, but I know everything. Unpredictable, which is also a good thing too. We should all kind of have a little bit of that in us. Unpredictable, I like that. Way in the back. Ooh, strong will. Once they get a belief system, it's black or white. I like that. And so what I'd like to share is over the years, here are some points, and I'm going to bring them all up there. Thank you very much, Emma. The idea of a lot of times fickle. Fickle is just a great way of describing that unpredictability that we oftentimes see. Not necessarily truly understanding the full complexity of the world, which is oftentimes referred to then as poor insight. They develop a belief and they hold strong to it. Sometimes, maybe not for the best issue for them in the long term. And that last one down there, this actually has to do with the frontal lobe of the brain. Lack of the capacity to modulate one's emotions. So those people over here who can't see what's up there on the bottom of it, I'll make sure I clarify that. Pretty good description of an adolescent? You have. All right. So let's keep moving forward. Now this is curious. There are 3 questions that all young adults, every one of you, must ask and answer. By the way, as adults, you need to have asked and answered these 3 questions too. Otherwise, we find that we struggle. And the 3 questions are, and there's a 4th point on here, and we're going to bring them right on up. Do I fit in? Am I normal? And am I liked? Do I fit in? Am I normal? Am I liked? These 3 are at the core of relating to other individuals. If I feel inferior, if I don't feel like I fit in, if I can't find a group that I can be accepted by, I can wander through life lost, without supports. I may be accepted by a group that's going to take me down a path that has a totally different agenda than what I truly have in my heart. And there are adults who struggle with these same 3 questions. And they oftentimes get influenced. We oftentimes talk about how we need the ability to have a higher power. Faith has been shown through research to be able to help individuals when it comes to struggling through difficult decisions, dealing with issues in the life. There's a 4th point on this slide. Because sometimes there is this reality of a conflict that we see. I want to be accepted, but at the same time, I want to push my individuality. As Nietzsche says, to stereotype me is to negate me. Well, in this case, if I'm a young adult and I want to be myself, but I want to be accepted at the same time, it's an interesting kind of decision. It's a balance that they struggle with. And some children might actually start playing out their individuality to the destruction of their future. And that's where we have to step in and help. So we are going to continue moving forward on this journey this morning. I love this slide, and we're just going to have that top header up there. This is a comment I hear in therapy a lot. And I hate to have the bold word up there at the kind of towards the end of that first line. But love me for who I am, or else. There's this problem we have in our society. We're going to put the 2 first bullets up there. Love me for who I am. In our society, we, for some reason, push individuality and autonomy. I'm not you, and I make my own decisions. Well, that's nice. You get a lot of that in our society. You can listen to kids all over the place. I'm not you. I make my own mind. That's great. But those are only 2. Let's put all the other developmental milestones up there. Those are only 2 of the things that we want young adults to develop. Take a look at these. The ability and the capacity to manage your emotions. Again, frontal lobe functioning, this is the ability to inhibit. Even though I have a thought or a feeling, I can inhibit and make better decision making. How to cooperate. Think about this in your own families. How to communicate. If I don't know how I emotionally experience the world, I'm more likely to act it out. And if I don't have the communication skills, I know how I feel about the world, but I don't have the communication skills, I'm more likely to act it out. So we need to have good communication skills. Self-esteem, where I know I don't have to give up my values in order to be accepted. Too many people, unfortunately, desire desperately to seek approval externally. And they give up who they are just to get that, yeah, we like you. You could be part of us. Obviously, there's a lot of issues up there. I want to just hit upon the second to the bottom one on the right, because we're going to move through based on time. By the way, we have just gotten to lunch. I really did not want to pull away slides. I want to give you the information. The bottom on the right, second one from the bottom, ego boundaries. A little statement. For all the young adults in here, this is something that's really a key concept. Ego, the way I see myself. Boundary. There's a line between you and me. I am not you and you are not me. Everything that you think, feel, say, and do is a statement of you. It's not a statement of me. Everything I think, feel, say, and do is a statement of me. And to understand that, peer pressure. Let me give you a good example. Bullying. If I ask 100 people to give feedback to me at the end of this presentation, and if somebody says, well, he was a short African-American female, I don't know how accurate of a statement that is. And just because I get feedback doesn't necessarily make it fact. So when a bully says that I am a fat hippopotamus, I'm a dopey giraffe, I'm whatever it might be, whatever comes out of their mouth is a statement of them. It's not a statement of me. If someone steals from me, that's not a statement of me, it's a statement of them. Ego boundaries. I know where I end and you begin. I don't have to give power to your words. Call me whatever you want. I don't have a problem with it. I'm not being affected by it. Ego boundaries is a strength factor. I always like to help young adults develop this. We are going to continue along. I'm so grateful that the technology that you guys have at this church is just state of the art. Wonderful. By the way, you know how people surprise you? Casey, I met Casey at this conference that Pastor Mark and I were at, and he did the videography. So I didn't know anything beyond him. I come walking in, he says hi. I'm like, what's the videographer doing up there with the guitar, lead singing and all? That's pretty impressive. And like he doesn't come from a talented family. Dad, can you come in, fill in? You got some skill around here. Adolescent brain. We're going to put all 4 of these bullets up there. The brain of a young adult, and we've discovered from doing wonderful research, we understand that it continues to develop till you're 25. They're not just little adults, they're still developing. So you see those factors on the inside bullet, poor decision, impulsivity, those all are a part of the developing brain. It's a natural reality. Even adults struggle with these. That second bullet, concrete operations versus formal operation. When your child was younger, there might be a tendency of saying, it's bedtime. Well, why? Because it's bedtime. Okay. Black and white. Oh, and it's just as simple as that. But then their brain starts to really kick into gear. And this is where parents call me up and they say, Doc, I don't know who came into my house last night, but they took my angel and left this little hellion. All of a sudden, the brain hits this thing called formal operations. And that's because actually there's more neuronal connections, more neurons connecting in the brain, higher cortical functioning. And so now when you tell me that there's a rule, my first thought is, how does this not apply to me? And you may think about that happening at your house now. That's the comment in the third. The fourth one there, just really quickly, is the ability to actually look at myself and say, what's my purpose for being here? Why am I here? What's the greater good beyond me? Metacognition. We're going to keep rolling. Every civilization has a storyteller. And our first bullet up there says, it's the media. And in our society, we have this technology that really pushes this reality. I am very disappointed by some of the programming that's on TV. Right now, my co-author and I have just been contracted by a couple of New York City talent agents, and they asked us to put together a reality show that's transformative. No crash and burn, no train wreck, nobody gets voted off. Everybody works on personal issues on this. And so not only do the people on the show actually improve, but also the viewing audience who can relate to those individuals, learn from the experience. And so we're hoping to be able, we're going to meet with the TV producers at the end of this month to actually kind of concretize the actual template of the show. And there's a show out there called iCarly. Yeah, we can put those two little cute little video transitions up there. Those are from video games. This is what is common. So I like to have them actually playing while I'm talking. Yeah, that's what you see. The amount of violence, the realism, is stunning. Parents ask me all the time, should my child watch a violent anything? Well, first off, you have your own family belief system, so I really encourage you to consider what your value system is. Second off, I'd like to just be able to say when it comes to the mind, it's a real simple thing. Does your child have the capacity to differentiate between fantasy and reality? If they can, great, fine. If they can't be exposed to it, because that's training for them. There's a show, anybody familiar with the show called iCarly? Yep. I don't quite get the show, seriously. Probably because I'm a little too old to really get it. But there's really no adults on the show, except any adult on the show is an idiot. Yeah, exactly, that's right. It's a reality-based docudrama. And there's an older brother who apparently, idiot. Thank you very much. Excellent description of that young man. There's three main characters. I don't exactly know how they get the opportunity of doing what they do, but they get to do whatever they want, and they get to treat every adult like an idiot. That's right. And I find that incredibly painful to actually see as a message that we oftentimes plop our kids in front of the TV and watch. I'm going to continue moving along on this. On average, if you take the use and add it all together, my iPad, my cell phone, video games, my laptop, if you take all the technology that we use in society, when you do the survey with youth, we find out when you put it all together, that totals to an average of over 7 hours per day. So they're multitasking with all these things at one time. You put that together in a week, it's over 50 hours. If you do anything for over 50 hours in a week, you're going to be an expert on that. And all too often, I'm going to bring up that next little slide there, we're dealing with an epidemic right now of childhood obesity, type 2 diabetes, because we have individuals who are less active, eating poorly. Just to let you know this is a little FYI. People with type 2 diabetes tend to live shorter lives. We have an epidemic of type 2 diabetes in our society. This may be the first generation that does not outlive its parents. Finishing up down there, in the media, there's a message that we are inadequate. And the only way you can do that is by buying whatever it is that they're selling. We will continue moving forward. So at my time at Hopkins, I thought I was going to be working in the adult world, and I'd be waiting for people who had really great memories and wanted to sit around and stay with me for years upon years and talk about their mothers. And I found that to be not very rewarding, not only from me as a professional, me personally, but also from my patients. We were always talking about, well, what caused it, what caused your problem? It's always external, what caused your problem? It wasn't a whole lot about dealing with it or addressing it or moving on. So I started working, we did an assessment on all the young adults. And we found out like 5-6 years earlier that they were doing just fine, but by the time they got to the adult world, they had succumbed to the world around them and had anxiety issues and significant depression and dropped out of school. So I decided rather than waiting for them to come to me with these issues, I would do an elective rotation in pediatrics and catch them before they start having these issues. So my entire career falls in the category of duh. That's why we're getting together today, to address these issues. So what we put together were a number of prevention programs. You can see 2 of them up there, Teens Talk and Hopkins Club. We were in 9 of the public schools. We had an after-school program for each one of those age groups in the medical center. And what we ended up discovering, and by the way, it's coming from the back, so I can't point at it. They all came from lower socioeconomic. They all had drug abuse in the family. All of them had a single parent. Most of them had single parent. Many of them had someone in jail. It was a pretty high-risk group. Communities that were devastated, no jobs, high drug use, teen pregnancy, all over the place. And what we ended up discovering, when you just get these young adults in positive peer-oriented support programs, we had an increase in improving their relationship with their families, with school, increased GPA. We had a decrease in psychiatric problems, conduct problems, referrals, all over the place. Again, an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. So we are going to keep moving on this. Woof. I'm going to toss all 7 of these up there. for future reference, if you want to get more information on this topic, these are the 7 principles of resilience. And a person by the name of Emmy Werner, as well as the Wolins, put together some great research in this area. They found that if you take young adults who come from pretty troubled communities, that you would expect them, oh, they're going to probably fall prey to the world around them. But they followed these kids from 0 or from childhood to 18. 1/3 of them were successful, but 2/3 of them, unfortunately, have fallen prey to the world around them. But they looked at this 1/3 group, and they found out that they possessed either all or most of these characteristics. The ability to have independence. Independence from the terrible situation. I am not it. If someone is a drug abuser, if someone was mean and physical, that's not a state I am independent from. But yet I still have relationships to healthy individuals, role models, people I could look up to. Creativity and humor. Creativity is because they came from not a whole lot, so they can make something out of nothing. But yet at the same time, the devastating world around them, they were able to make nothing out of something. Great research in this area. I always love to just share that. It's a concept. If you want to look up more information, I could also provide you with tons of information. We're going to keep moving along. So I wrote this book with my co-author in the premise of, listen, we've put in over 60,000 clinical hours, and rather than waiting for you to come into our programs or private practices, listen, here are the 10 most common issues that we've seen. This is what causes them. This is what we recommend you do with them. Here, have a good life. I don't need to see everybody. I don't believe I need to be the keeper of the secret information. So share the information. And you can see the areas up there that it covers. And we've converted it to a youth prevention curriculum called the Social Black Belt. By the way, Pastor Mark, I think you're back over there. I don't know if you guys want, but we could also train individuals here on how to put the program into practice here. We're now doing what are called replication studies because we want this to be a valid program to prove that it makes a difference. We've already done the intervention. We've already done the research, and it is successful. We're now replicating it elsewhere. So if the church wants, we could chat certainly further about that. Keep rolling along. Here are the outcomes. These are the things that you want to improve in anyone's life. And you can see up here. Ego boundaries. Remember that thing before? I know where I end. I am not you. You are not me. Here's a toughie. Self-efficacy. We're just going to hit upon these two because that's a lot of information to go over. So we want to get to the meat of it. Self-efficacy has 2 parts to it. First one, I know that this behavior, walking over here, gets me over here. I know that behavior A leads to this outcome B. I know that. The second part of self-efficacy is I either possess that knowledge or I know how to access it. So you need both parts. I know that this leads to this. You need that knowledge. If you don't know that this leads to this, and you do possess the behavior, you don't do anything with it. You need to know that it leads somewhere. And if I know that it leads somewhere, but I don't possess it, I don't move. I feel kind of bummed out. I don't have it. So I need to know that A leads to B, and I need to be able to access it or have access to it. So there's a ton of information there. So let's get to some of the meat of it. The truth, the first truth that we deal with. Lots of people tell me constantly, we're going to toss the first bullet up. No, here's the myth. My emotions are caused by situations or people in my life. The reality is that they are not these mysterious visitors from somewhere else. They're not caused by other people or situations. So let's hit upon our next slide here. First bullet up there. As young adults, your emotions are statements of you. My emotions are statements of me. They're not universal. I'm up here presenting. How many of you would want to come up here and present? Some would, some would not. It's because it's a situation. Presenting in front of people is neutral. The second bullet up there says about your perception of reality. Speaking up in front of people is neutral, but it's your perception of it. So we are going to have a quick little sing-off up here. I'm going to have 2 people, and I'm going to pick out of the crowd, not from the choir. I'm going to bring up 2 people to sing the national anthem. And we're going to have it do a little sing-off and then a vote-off like American Idol. Sweet? Let's say the young lady with her arms crossed right there just cut an album with faith-based songs. You're the soloist at your church. You just sang the national anthem at the Tropicana. How would you be feeling about coming up here? Confident. If I don't know the words and I can't hold a flat, how am I feeling? Nervous. Singing in front of people is neutral. The situation is neutral. It depends on what your perception of it is. I'm up here and I love doing this and sharing information. Other people have a different perception, and that's something you can actually address. Third bullet up there. You only have emotions to things you're invested in. Anybody in here from Albuquerque, New Mexico? Good. Let's make fun of that. Do you know that the incumbent mayor of Albuquerque, New Mexico lost in the last election? Do you care? If you don't have a horse in the race, you have no emotional reaction to it. So your emotions are based on you as an individual, based on your perception, and about statements of things you're invested in. Fourth point up there. And I love giving these 4 to the young adults that I work with, because it's so easy for us to blame our emotions, the way we're reacting to the world, on the situations in our lives, and blame it on other people. Hey, to the young adults in this congregation, who do you ultimately control? Yourself. Do you control other people? No. So if your emotions are due to other people and other situations, I'm sorry. But your emotions aren't caused by other people and situations. Your emotions are statements of you, about your perception, about what you're invested in, and they have meaning. And if you understand this, you can address that. So I'm just going to hit upon one of those up there. Let's see. Let's go with anger. A lot of people come in and they talk about being really kind of charged with anger. Anger is an emotion that is not primary. What's that mean? Seems kind of, it's primal, but it's never primary. Anger doesn't happen all by itself. Anger actually is, if you think about it, anger happens for one of 2 reasons. These things you can actually deal with. Either something happened that you didn't want to have happen, or something didn't happen that you wanted to have happen. Now, me being angry is a statement of me. You can't do anything about that. But if something between us has happened that I didn't want to have happen, or something didn't happen that I wanted to have happen, now that we can deal with. Your emotions are statements of you, about your perception of reality, not about reality, about your perception. I'm afraid that if I get up here, I may piddle myself. I have actually someone who's afraid of toy clowns coming alive at night, doing bad things to them. We don't possess transformer technology. The likelihood of that happening is 0, but yet this person has a fear of it. Their emotions are statements of them, their perceptions, their investments, and they have meaning. We're going to keep moving along just because of the issue with time. When I was at Hopkins, the head of psychiatry, Dr. Paul McHugh, revealed this little bit of information. And I hate to ask this question before I get started on this. How much time do I have from this point forward? Cold. We're just at the end of the second day. We got a whole day ahead of us. Do you know anyone who's done a behavior and you thought, really? You did that again? Yeah. You might even think to yourself, yep, glad you didn't ask me to raise my hand. I'm going to put these 4 up here. We're going to actually talk about all 4. I'm going to ask Emma if you can put them all up there. Paul McHugh came up with this statement of motivated behaviors. Whenever you see a pattern, a repeated pattern of behavior, even if it's unhealthy, people get into these things and they get stuck in the ways that they do things over and over. And it all deals with the way you perceive the world. So for each one of us has something that might freak us out, get us nervous, whatever it might be, but that's individual. Remember, it's a statement of you. So when you have your perceived, whatever that is, stressor, your brain suddenly reacts. It's actually a region of the brain, the orbital frontal cortex, lights up, 2 neural pathways follow. It's pretty cool brain science on there. One goes to the emotional center and lights up just slightly ahead of the facts, the memories. And that's why you as an individual react, because it hits the emotional center, which is the right corner on there, where you have these obsessive thoughts, these intrusive feelings, and you think the worst possible things. scary things. I'm going to fail. I'm going to get rejected. I'm going to be embarrassed, whatever it might be. And so you have to figure out, what am I going to do? What am I going to do to handle it? And that's where you figure out some behavior. Some individuals, unfortunately, choose poorly. I have a guy who gets a little nervous when he leaves his door in the morning in the house to go to work. He's called a checker. He has this obsessive-compulsive nature. He goes, oh, I didn't lock it. Let me unlock. Okay, now it's locked. He goes back to his car. Wait, did I just unlock a locked door? Wait, okay, hold on. And he goes back, and he locks it. He does that between 20 and 25 times every morning. His neighbors watch this. It takes a half an hour. Now, he does that behavior because it gives him short-term relief. Until the next time it's like, oh, wait a second. Or someone's afraid of dogs. I know it's a puppy cocker spaniel with big floppy ears, but it's Cujo. It's going to go right here. I don't want to. So I run across the street, and then someone comes out of a store with a purse and a little toy cup chihuahua. Oh, gosh. I have to avoid every time because I've taught myself that's how I shut down the neural pathways in the brain. So there's a perceived stressor. I have these intrusive thoughts. I figure out compulsively, what am I going to do to give me short-term relief? It doesn't solve it. And so what we oftentimes talk about is, how do you productively solve your problems, address them, don't avoid them. And I keep rolling along on this. In life, over time, we develop more coping skills. The problem is, once you develop whatever that pattern of behavior is, that compulsive behavior, we end up seeing this happening. You don't learn new coping skills, which is why you see people doing that same behavior again and again and again, because it actually shuts the brain pathway down. And some of those things people can choose would be alcohol, or they might be jealous to their friends, or even like a young lady that I work with who unfortunately hurts herself every time she gets too overwhelmed. She can't deal with emotional stress, but she's figured out how to handle physical pain. It's very destructive and very painful. Some people practice things. Let's say like extreme yoga. This slide here is an inverted dog pose from someone who has decided that they were going to work really hard on dealing with their issues. Kids, I highly recommend don't do this. The great thing is, once we start dealing with the issues, what we end up seeing is the recovery line, and it's a much quicker way. So we want to help individuals develop the skills. We're going to keep moving along here, and I'm going to see what comes up right now. I tell this to everyone I work with. The day that parents stop teaching their kids their neurotic behaviors is the day I'm out of a job. I don't think it's going to happen. Too many people get into those repetitive behaviors, and even as adults, they contribute to their children in such ways that it may not always be the best. So I want everybody in here to think about their own family, their own parents. Think about how you relate to each other, the people you love. The 4 A's of love: attention, affection, acceptance, and approval. If you give these 4 to the person you're with, they experience it, they receive it as love. Attention. I'm willing to spend time with you doing things you like. I'm willing to spend time with you doing things I like. I'm willing to spend time with you that we discover together that we like to do. Attention. Affection. I am verbally and non-verbally, publicly and privately, willing to share with you how much I care and love you. Acceptance. I value you for who you are. You like to play the drums, and your sister likes to be able to play basketball. You're unique and individual, and I love you for that. Your unique aspect. Think about this from your own family, the way they taught you. And approval. Whatever your dreams and goals are, I will be there behind you to support you no matter what those are. I'm going to be the person who shouts the loudest on how much I believe in you. Attention, affection, acceptance, and approval. Lots of times people say, I can work on that a little bit. We're going to keep going. This is the parent's job. It's your job to raise your children to be independent enough that they no longer need you. It's one of those comments lots of parents go, ooh, really? My baby, I got to let my baby go? Yep. The goal is to raise them with the values and abilities. It doesn't guarantee anything, and just because I tell someone something doesn't mean that they necessarily follow it. But it's my job to teach them, to give them the skills that makes them independent enough. Keep rolling along. Friends can't tell friends you're grounded. No child likes structure imposed upon them. But many children and all people love structure in place. Nobody told me to put clothes on today. I didn't have to think about it. Just did it. No one had to tell me what side of the street to drive on. Nobody likes structure imposed upon them. So if you're a parent, you need to have structure for your child. If you don't, there's going to come a day where you're going to need structure for your child. And you've been too much of the friend. Most people do not like it imposed upon them. So parents, please realize this on the third bullet. Parents will oftentimes say this stuff, well, do as I do, not as I, do as I say, not as I do. My usual reaction to that is, are you kidding me, really? Children have never been very good at listening to the elders, but they never failed at imitating them. Lead by example. We're going to keep rolling along. Oof. Midday Sunday. Oof. As a parent, your child's job is to find your Achilles heel, and lance it. Because they want all the freedoms, all the privileges of an adult without any of the responsibility. Keep rolling along. I cannot believe we're moving this fast in this stuff. Here you go. This is the reality. There are two lasting bequests we can give our children. One is roots, the other is wings. Give them a foundation, but let them soar. Doesn't mean that they're not going to fall. There are benefits from learning from struggles. Children are the product of their environment. So, as we say here, not only are your kids the best and the worst of whatever they've been exposed to, but so too are you. So you might come from a family that may not have been the best at providing you with really healthy decision-making rules, values, etc. Realize that you are a product of your environment as a parent. Because of the issue of time, we're going to skip the blame game. This is just huge. Man, here's a little reality. When it comes to your hierarchy in the family, this is what happens. Your wife, your children, your dog, then you, okay? Just get that straight right off the bat. As a parent, be a parent. Don't be a friend. And I don't mean to say you can't be friendly. You are supposed to have great relationships with your kids, but you are their parent. Be friendly, but it's not being a friend. Remember, friends can't ground friends. Parents ask me, how long am I supposed to keep doing this? I always say, well, as long as you're deducting them on your taxes. We're going to keep rolling along. Whew. I am amazed. Whew. As parents, please figure out what you want to do. If you're sending a mixed message to your kids, you lose. You lose. You lose. You lose. Let me say that again. You lose. It's your child's job to find your Achilles heel. So there are times where they're going to go to you and then ask because they know that you're going to respond this way, and then they're going to go to your spouse and they're going to go this way with it because you guys don't figure out what you're going to do. You may not always agree with things, but you have to compromise as parents. What are we going to do? Compromises where both parties are moderately disappointed, but we're willing to accept it. So here we have this comment. Children are like water. They flow to the path of least resistance. You don't have a united front, you lose. You're teaching your child how to be manipulative. Play the system for their advantage. All right, here we go. This is going to be fun. I got a bunch of quotable quotes. I know Pastor Mark is up here right now, so I am going to roll through these. All right. Remember, I want this stuff to wash over you. Let it flow. Absorb it. First one actually came from Ben Franklin. Tell me, and I forget. Teach me, and I remember. Involve me, and I learn. Eddie Davis actually said, if you've never been hated by a child, you've never been a parent. Frederick Douglass. It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. Ray Romano. You all know Ray. Having children is like living in a frat house. Nobody sleeps, everything's broken, and there's lots of throw-up. A father's goodness is higher than the mountains. A mother's goodness is deeper than the sea, a Japanese proverb. Parents who are afraid to put their foot down usually have children who tread on their toes. Each day of our lives We make deposits in the memory banks of our children. If you want children to keep their feet on the ground, put some responsibilities on their shoulders. We're going to move through this really quickly as we're coming to the end of our presentation for this morning. Just to be aware that self-esteem is based off of a simple premise. Set a goal, set, work, and achieve. In life, our self-esteem starts at 0. We set a goal, I want to reach for this little toy and I want to shove it in my mouth. And then I get frustrated because I can't reach something, and I try to stand and I fall and I get back up, and that's the great thing about kids. They show us the ability to keep going. But in life, we have to learn from either the mistakes or the errors so as not to repeat them. Set, work, and achieve a goal. We have, unfortunately, too much material to cover in a brief period of time. For those individuals who have, and think about this for yourself, if you have a self-esteem that may not always be the best and people are constantly saying, oh, no, you're really good. Why do you feel so bad about yourself? Those individuals have been using what's called psychological judo. Every time a compliment comes to them, they take it and they fling it off. They minimize, negate, trivialize. And so you have to be able to learn how to accept compliments. And there's a game that I love to do with families. If I was having the opportunity of this 5 family right here, I'd just simply say, all I want you to do is each one of you have to give a compliment to someone, to everyone, one at a time in the family. And what I want you to do is 2 parts. And this is how someone begins to assimilate reality, because it's based on reality. And this is a positive things that build self-worth. 2 parts. 1, get a compliment. 1, thank you. Not thanks. Not whatever, no biggie. Anyone could have done it. Thank you. And 2, why it even matters. I'm really proud of you, what you did this year with your grades. Thank you. I really worked hard this year. I wanted to get good grades. Wow, I love the style of what you're wearing. Thank you. I kind of care the way I present myself out there. 1, thank you, and 2, why it even matters. That's how we begin to assimilate feedback in reality, which builds our self-worth. Can't read this for, it's a really great poem that talks about changing your life perspective instead of being so harsh, how to really kind of rejoice being a parent. Remember that the advice your son rejected is now being given by him to your grandson. It's a long-term process. I'm going to, just based on where we're at, you could toss those all up there so everyone can see what civility is all about. 2 parts of that in particular. Empathy is the ability to feel for someone else. If you're familiar with the area called autism, there is a specific task that children who have autism or Asperger's need to be able to accomplish. Everybody has to accomplish this. The youngest person in here has to accomplish this. It's called theory of mind, the ability to see someone else's point of view. If you don't have the ability to understand, feel for, and see someone else's point of view, you can't exist in society. Can't have a friend, can't hold a job, can't live on your own, because you will be constantly running into conflict with the world. So empathy, the ability to feel for, to see someone else's point of view. And the upper right there, you can see the asterisk one. I teach parents to emphasize this. Take your child and volunteer for the less fortunate. Give back to the community, to develop an attitude of gratitude. We have raised a generation that oftentimes believes that they deserve just because they're breathing. And that is not the fact. We have to be able to teach this. I'd like to close, just based on the time, with a thank you. I can't believe we made it through this. All right, here we go. Wait, hold on. Here's the thank you part. That's not from me. That's KH. I'm HS. I get these thank you notes. This is why I do what I do. And they bring a tear to my eye. I didn't know which one to present to you all today. But Christy is this great young lady who came from the rough streets of Baltimore that I was talking about when I was at Hopkins. And her family, single parent, father was out of the picture. He was an IV heroin abuser. He was probably going to be dying the year that we had met. He had tried to murder Mom. She was about to be kicked out of school. She got involved with our positive, peer-oriented support groups, Beanstalk. We met 1 hour a week, 1 hour a week. She became the most improved student in her school. She volunteered at the aquarium in Baltimore. She's currently now getting her PhD in marine biology. She's not only the first person to graduate high school in her family, no one's ever even come close to this. She shared this. Think about this as a parent, the impact. I have 1 hour a week. Think about the impact. This is so touching. Thank you for being there. They say mean things to me, but I'm not their insults. They say 30% of all kids will drop out of school, but I'm not their statistics. They say that kids from broken homes are more likely to fail, but I'm not their assumptions. They say children of color will not amount to anything, but I'm not their stereotypes. Good grades are not a color. Waiting to have a child until I'm done with school is not a color. Working to achieve in my career is not a color. Doing what's right is not a color. You are not my parent, but you are my role model. You challenge me because you care. You are respectful, consistent, and hold me accountable. You are the light through the darkness. And because of you, I am the captain of my ship. I am loyal and trustworthy. I am hardworking and seek my goals. I am the best that I can be. Thank you for being there. And thank you for being here today.
We're going to invite the praise band to come forward. Wasn't it just a delight? Give Dr. Shinitzky another hand this morning. I know that every Christian tradition is different, but I can say honestly that in the United Methodist tradition, we believe that all truth comes from God. So whether that truth is found directly in Scripture or from science-based research, we believe that every truth comes from God and that we have lots to learn from all kinds of people and all kinds of research, not just from our reading of Scripture. And it's so nice to see someone come and show us how evidence-based research can dovetail with Scripture that goes back several thousand years. And so I hope that you have been blessed today. I want to invite you to stand. We're going to sing our closing song, and I'm going to ask Dr. Shinitzky to go out to the table outside. He's got some books available. If you would like to learn more about the topic, you can purchase those outside. And again, if you are here for the first time, please make sure that you come up and shake my hand so I can make the personal introduction. Give me your Connect card. And for those of you that are coming back next week, we hope everybody will come back next week. We're going to be talking about the importance of dealing with family conflict in a healthy way. Anybody have conflict in their family? Ever had conflict in your family? If you're not raising your hand, you're lying. And just remember, you're in church. You shouldn't lie, and not even in church. But we're going to be dealing with family conflict. We're going to invite you to come back to continue this series, Family Matters. Please join me as we sing our closing song.
Splendor